welcome to the Vertical Shift Podcast. This is Justin.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Tommy.
And I'm Michael.
All right, let's get started. Michael, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's summarize where we're at.
Oh, yeah, let's remember.
Right, part one with Michael last
I
week.
just remember leaving it and like I was really anxious to hear what was going to happen.
Yeah, you were yelling at everybody, telling them not to keep going.
When you don't have, when a show is not on like Netflix or something, you can't binge it and you have to actually wait the week to listen to the next
Back
episode.
when we had real TV.
Yeah, exactly. Like live TV, you had to wait.
Yeah.
This is we're not in a moment of waiting anymore.
Yeah, no, we're here.
Although people who listen to this podcast and keep up with it, like our longtime listener Michael here, have to wait sometimes longer than a week.
Right. And somebody teased me. I think it was you, Michael. Actually, said our one podcast was on consistency, and then we didn't meet.
He said that the last one at like the beginning of the year was something around
Jeremy said
being consistent.
Jeremy, and I would look back, and that's true.
And there's been a few folks,
but it was a different. I told him that was the different context.
Yeah,
that's true. It's true.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, get us summed up here.
So we last left off with, if we think back to Michael, his childhood, mom being a kid, trying to raise kids, right? Guys in and out of kind of the your mom's life. You kind of take on this role, Michael, of kind of having a parental role, and then you take on the responsibility, and you kind of blamed yourself a little bit for maybe not being the parent in that role because you were going out and hanging with friends, all that stuff. And really where we're at right now is you have kind of your first exposure, quote unquote, to church. Right. And where we left off is,
I got you.
Yeah. Pick up.
See, I got it. So
this is so exciting.
We got dad, divorced, boyfriend, 2 new siblings, married, no more kids, divorced. And now we're into this relationship.
A new man.
Yeah.
Who happens to have his own wife and kids.
Correct.
Yeah.
I wasn't tracking all that, but what we do know from these podcast episodes is that Jeff has taken math theory in college. So I think this is where that came into play. The way that you just tracked all that is amazing. Yeah.
What?
See? Oh my! Come on, Tom. You got to give me credit.
Dude, that was beautiful. That was amazing.
Weird.
Thank you. So now you're going to church for the first time. You have a guy that desires to spend time with you, but he's married and has his own family. So pick it up, man.
So there's a lot of confusion in that, right? So, but it was the first time that I'd ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of excused a lot of the, this guy's having an affair with my mom, right? Because, we came from nothing, man. My mom, again, was a single mom for the most part, right? She was married a few times to guys, but a lot of times those guys didn't even have jobs. Like, she was the only one providing. And, this guy was doing well for himself, owned his own flooring company. And, I was working for him, and, he was paying me $10 an hour, which, at that point I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be rich, as a teenager who never got anything. Right. And so, that was really the first person who ever took an interest in me. And, again, he did want to see us in church, which is, a great thing for him to do to try to expose us to that. Granted, he was probably dealing with some things
Dude, this is so
during
crazy.
that time as well.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, and granted, we're all sinners and we all sin in different ways. And, it's almost like his heart was kind of in the right place for us. Right. But at the same time, he was dealing with this dark and scary thing, which was like an affair. Right.
So you were working with him. I mean, was it ever any awkward? I mean, did he ever act
all the time.
weird, or
Well, it was really awkward when I was working on his farm, right?
Yeah,
and
you mentioned
his
that.
wife would bring him out like a sandwich for lunch, and he'd be sitting there eating with his kids, and I knew that like he was probably texting my mom at the same time, and so
Like, did you witness anything going on with him and his wife that showed that there was tension? And
my mom told me that that's how she kind of justified it. I never really saw anything,
Yeah.
I mean, she brought him a sandwich. Not a lot of tension there. I mean, you're not going to bring your husband a sandwich if there's some tension. I'll speak from experience. I don't get a sandwich when there's tension.
Yeah. Right.
Do you?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
So
check it.
yeah, man. So we're going to this guy's uncle's church, right? And besides the affair, there's just some things like it was very much a situation where I felt like they were trying to scare me into salvation rather than love, right?
Yeah.
It was hellfire and brimstone, like, and there were a few times I've told this story several times. I'll keep it short, but there was a time that he was preaching on the devil putting up doors in your life, right? And then we as Christians have to kick down those doors. And so he brought me up as an illustration. Guess what I got to be?
The door.
The door.
No way.
This pastor put his size 12 boot in my chest.
No
and
way.
I flew across
Stop.
the stage.
Wow.
Kidding me? Are you kidding?
And he was like, "Oh, he's a football player. He's tough. Get on up, boy."
Wow.
And so I got up, went back out there, and after that service, I was like, "I'm never coming back here again."
Yeah, you just got beat up.
Yeah, exactly. Not the pastor, right? And I remember this was
This is the independent. That's why they're independent.
Yeah.
if you guys remember the 2008 2009 trends, I was wearing like a pink Hollister polo
I was
and
having
had
kids
like
With
the
a footprint?
yeah, with the shell necklaces. Right after that service, so I'm already kind of done with this guy after he just kicked me in the chest.
Yeah.
And after the service, we get held back, and he was like, "Don't ever wear a pink shirt in my church again. Boys don't wear pink. They also don't wear necklaces. Take that off." And at that point, my mom was a little offended, and so we stopped going to that church after that experience.
Surprised you're not like, hey, like not only am I now scared into salvation, but I feel like I need to confess some other things, and you just start looking around and you,
Yeah, for sure. And
Wow.
so
Yeah. Like,
So
oh,
did their
really?
relationship then with your mom and this guy end?
yeah, so I stopped going to that church with them, right? I think they continued to go for a little bit, but I was like, yeah, I'm not going back after that. And so probably a few months go by, this whole thing blows up in his face, right? His wife finds out about my mom.
Wow.
He gets kicked out of the
So,
house.
wait. Yeah, let's not breeze over that if we can. I don't know. This is where it was getting good, where I was
Yeah.
like, what's it going to be like when people find out? So, do you know how she found out?
I don't. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you. I just remember. Really, the only thing I remember was I was not working that week. So I was not helping him at his house. And then a few weeks go by, and he calls me and is like, "We are going to work." And my mom tells me, like, "Hey, Jesse and his wife are getting divorced. Like it's over." And so I'm just like, "Oh wow, maybe he and my mom are going to get together, right?" And I just remember my next duties at work were going to help him remodel this house that he was going to be moving into. And so I was helping him put the floors in and tiling, and we went shopping for bedding and things like that. Like I helped him do all those things. And so he was moving into this house, and he and my mom were still kind of seeing each other for a little bit, and they were dating. And then one day it just all kind of ended, and my mom said, he's trying to work things out with his wife. So he and his wife started going to counseling. I think the uncle that was the preacher,
The guy that kicked you?
No. This was
Okay.
yes. The guy at
Wow.
the church, the uncle. Was the pastor. I think he was the one that was kind of doing the marriage counseling. So obviously he found out. So we did not go to that church anymore. Nobody. I had stopped going for a little while, but so my first church experience was quite an odd one, right? I was there because of an affair. There's a lot of scaring tactics, and just like boys don't wear pink shirts or necklaces, and it was almost just like there wasn't a lot of love there. Again, if I don't feel welcome or if I don't feel accepted by someone, I put up walls real quick, and I just didn't feel loved and wanted there. So I stopped going. My family stops going. So we start going to this.
Because you're how old at this?
This is middle school. Yeah. This is probably 7th grade.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just like 18 now.
No, this is
full life.
a lot
This
of
is
life,
all
man. Pre-high school. Yeah.
Golly, listen,
Yeah.
I'm interested to get to high school.
Yeah.
So they stopped seeing each other.
So they
Let's go
stopped
there.
seeing each other, and then
Now, so at the point that they were seeing each other, were you and your 3 siblings and your mom living together in a house or
we
whatever?
were. Yep. We were living in a small duplex, 2 bedrooms. We were all kind of stacked up in there, but
but it was just
we were there together.
5 of you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Just the 5 of us. And so, it's funny enough. I don't know if that guy's still married. Several years ago, and I say several, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. My mom was like, "Hey, I ran into Jesse." And it's just kind of crazy to think like, I thought so highly of this guy, right? And truly, like, I felt like he wanted, he took me in and like kind of took over this parental role, and it was the first time I'd ever had that. And so, I love this guy, and there was hope there, right? Man, maybe this guy could be my new dad. So I kind of overlooked like the affair stuff for the longest time. Like I knew it was wrong, but I was just like, I'm also being told like, him and his wife aren't in a good spot. Like, they're going to get a divorce, things like that. And it's just like, well, I'm working for him. It doesn't look like that, but it's just things that just I completely overlooked.
Well, he's not a drug addict and alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a lot to it, right? Like this guy had a little bit of money. He was put together. He acted like he cared for my mom. He helped her get better jobs than what she was working and things like that. And my mom was the happiest she had ever been and was, I guess, the healthiest she had been, right? Sure. She's not abusing at this time period. She's not doing drugs and alcohol and things like that.
Look, man, not to speak for your mom, but I imagine the same thing you felt, right, on a small scale as a kid, your mom's feeling as an adult.
For sure.
Hope and
sure.
He's
Absolutely.
helping out. He's doing this thing. Like he's taking on this role where she, like that's where there's so many things.
Well, she's been
wrapped up in
carrying
this.
these deadbeats, that don't even have jobs and addicts, and now you got this.
That's
I
right.
thought you were talking about Michael.
And so that church experience kind of ended, and I wasn't in church really at all after that for at least a year. So going into probably like midway through my 8th grade year, and then going into high school, we started going to this independent Baptist church that was in my hometown. We knew nobody there, so that was a good thing.
So let's just talk about that real quick. So out of the blue, your mom said, "Hey, we're going to church."
Out of the blue, at least my mom, granted, for all the reasons that we were there were wrong, right? But at least from that,
she was looking for a man.
Maybe.
I don't know. You said they were wrong. Okay.
She was looking for something.
The previous church.
The previous
all the
church.
wrong reasons.
Yeah, she was there for all the wrong reasons, but I think she got enough from that to where she wanted. She was still searching, right?
Gotcha.
She still wanted to know more about this God. She still wanted to have a little bit of stability. And the other thing too, man, is like, granted, I have a lot of thoughts about the first few churches that I went to, right? But there were people in those churches that we met that were incredible human beings that took care of us, and we all needed and wanted that and seek that out, right?
Sure.
I think it's a good moment. Just a quick reflection, though, that this is yet another example, and I'm sure. I mean, looking at and knowing you now, I know it's true. This is yet another example, though, of something that the Lord takes that was bad and makes it good. I mean, he obviously exposed that relationship for what it was.
For sure.
Because there was some ties to church and some ties to maybe something, related to God and knowing that that's a false sort of foundation to build your faith on, he had to expose that relationship. In whatever way it was exposed, he brought light to that darkness. But out of that, they planted a seed in your mom.
For sure.
She's searching for something.
Right.
Right. And so even people who abuse their positions, even false teachers, we hear a lot of, I've talked to a lot of people who have opinions about certain worship songs and who wrote that song and, those types of things. But the Lord can use all of that for his good and his purpose. So
absolutely.
And that's the thing too, man, like, you can't help but hear Michael's story and others that we've heard. And anybody that's maybe not a believer or is maybe new to this might go like, oh my word, how can that happen to a kid and 3 other kids in such a short period of time? Like I think about my own kids living through elementary school and middle school. Like they have not experienced that much life to this point, right?
He's 50.
That's
like
right.
at this point, he's in 8th grade. He's a 50-year-old man in life terms.
You can look at that and go, how could God allow that? Right. But God didn't do that to Michael. It's like, man, people made decisions. We talk about it all the time. People make decisions, and there's a ripple effect when we make decisions that are not God honoring. We're not obeying the Lord. Like there's consequences for decisions, but in that there are these opportunities for people to have a thought and follow that further, like have a spur of the moment where you're like, man, I heard something in that thing, or this person at that church we visited loved on us so well, and I will never forget how well they loved on us.
Well,
like,
I can say more of a spur. That's the Spirit.
Yeah, it draws you. Yeah.
He's creating that.
Well, everybody's searching.
That's right.
And so you find something that like, oh, this could be the answer. That's appealing, you know. But I think about, so far in your life, you have, I'm going to call her Brenda, who said, why are you just coming to eat at church? Right? That was a negative experience. I'm not going back.
Why not Karen?
Well, I'm letting up on Karen's.
Okay.
So it's Brenda.
Brenda's, yeah.
So, and then you've got this relationship that was not God honoring at all. And so that's your second experience.
Right.
And so now here's your third. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so third experience into church. And so this is where I really start to get plugged in, I guess, a little bit. It was an independent Baptist church that was local. But then they were very much like the first church that we went to. It was a lot of scare tactics, right? And so I'm only there for probably a year and a half before we stopped going there as well. We met some incredible people there.
Do you realize it's scare tactics then, or are you looking back on it now as much more?
Looking back. So I say that because I probably made in that year and a half 3 false professions of faith, during that, just because I was told at church, like, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, what do I got to do to not do that?
Well, fill out this card.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm definitely not getting kicked in the chest again.
Yeah. Didn't want that for sure. And so, and this was very much like, just their approach to evangelism, was certainly different. Like they were, I remember being told, not invited. I was told that I was going to a strawberry festival and that I was going to pass out tracts, like Bible tracts. And while I'm walking around, there's a guy with a bullhorn, right, just yelling at people like, "You're all gonna die. You're all gonna turn or burn." Exactly.
Very effective.
Yeah. And
very
so,
At a strawberry field.
That's a weird place to-
festival.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
I had a lot going on in that town, Justin.
yeah. And so I thought, during those years that I'd found the Lord, right? And so I'm passing out Bible tracts now. I'm standing on the street corner with these guys yelling. And then I just remember one day the pastor stopped by our church after a service one day. And we had a very small little duplex that we're all in. So he sends my siblings and I to our room. And he's in there having a conversation with my mom. And he basically just flat out said, like, you're not raising your kids right. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what you're not doing wrong. Granted, some of the things he was saying, may have been true, right? But it was his approach and how he went about it. And so we didn't go back to that church after that.
I'm assuming that these types of pastors aren't educated in the pastoral.
Well, there were a lot of things that, I think back in the day. I mean, I felt like when I grew up, everything was what you're not supposed to do and what you're supposed to boycott. And
For sure.
You know what I mean? And so I think there was a lot of learning through that. And you know what? Hey, maybe this isn't the best approach.
I mean, there was a long period of church history that the church didn't do any favors for the kingdom of God.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, if the man wants to wear his Hawaiian white shell necklace, let him wear it.
Exactly, man. So we stopped going to that church, and then so at this point, I'm a freshman in high school, right? Is whenever all that happened, and so at this point, man, I had found my true love, which was sports. I was playing football, I was playing basketball. I was.
Were you good?
I was good for the little town that I lived in.
I do know a sport that you get good at. I don't know if we'll get to it, but tennis, right?
I played tennis in high school. So played tennis, played baseball, basketball. Anyways, football was my love. And so, I started hanging out with the football guys. And there was this youth pastor from First Baptist Halls that would come to lunch every Wednesday. And he would just table hop, right? And he would just come by. Hey, how are you guys doing? And I remember him coming down and inviting me to church several times, right? And then
Brenda told us about you.
Yeah, and then
you like to come to church and eat.
Right, and then after our football game, we had like a fifth quarter. So he would come up and he would do a message, and the church would feed us. And so you guys have heard my track history with free food at churches.
Right.
I was in there, right? And so I started at this time. It was just me, right? It wasn't my siblings. It wasn't my mom. It wasn't anybody. I'd got invited to church and started going.
How'd you get to church?
I walked. Small town, man. Very small town. One stoplight. The church was
He
probably
skated, bro.
That's what I was gonna say.
At this point, the skateboards were thrown away. The hair was cut. You know, they wasn't past my shoulders
rolling his
anymore.
pants now.
Now we're to rollerblades.
Yeah. No, so now it's football, man. Football was what I
Please,
loved.
No
so.
rollerblades.
Yeah, I had rollerblades.
I know.
Was it? Anyway,
Zero surprise.
Oh gosh, that was good.
Carry on, Michael. Carry on.
Justin looks so confused. Like, why is that a big deal? I don't understand.
I have so many questions and so many jokes. I'm just going to leave it alone.
It's too easy, Josh.
It was too easy.
Yeah, man. And so I start going to this church, man, and I go into it thinking I'm saved, right? And thinking that I know the Lord, because I'd made these false, professions of faith at this previous church. And man, I just remember the youth pastor and, the pastor and just all the people there. They were just really pouring into the youth at the time. Our youth group was pretty big for our small town. It was probably 20, 30 kids on a Wednesday night. And man, once I started changing like who I was hanging out with, right? Once I started surrounding myself with people who loved on me, right? I felt wanted. This was like the first time that I really was like, they want me there. You know what I mean? And they want to love on me and they want what's best for me. They're asking me questions. And so, I still think I'm saved probably a year and a half going into this church. And
Were you asked at this point by the youth pastor?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. He would sit down with me and say like, "Oh, yeah, what do you believe?" And I would tell him the whole, I believe that Jesus died and all the things that I'd learned at, fundamental things that I'd learned at this previous church. I just didn't know what it meant to deny yourself daily, right? Yeah. I just thought like, hey, I said a prayer, I acknowledged him, and I'm good now, right? Fire insurance is basically what I believed. Sure. And man, I go to my first church camp, and I just remember that was like one of the best weeks of my life, right? And it was so cool. And at this time, I started dating this girl from Ripley, Tennessee, named Tiffany. And so she is now my wife. And so we've been together since we were 15. And so she starts coming to church with me on Wednesdays and things like that. And man, I just remember one night after a Wednesday night service, my youth pastor, I just walked up to him and I had tears in my eyes. And I said, man, I don't have it figured out. Like I thought I did, but I don't. This was coming after a week at church camp. So I was at my first church camp, and then like the following week was really when it all just all the things that I'd heard at that camp, and then didn't feel like I needed to walk down during the camp because at this time I'm still thinking, oh, that's not me. You know what I mean? Like I've got to figure it out.
Do you recall what it was in a message or what was communicated that really was like, dang, that's me?
Yeah. So it was the father aspect, right? Yeah. It was, God the Father wants you, right? And it was that feeling of feeling wanted. It was that feeling of not having a dad growing up. My coping mechanism has always been jokes. Like I saw a meme a few years ago. It's like, no matter how serious the situation, I'm a crack a little jokey joke, right? That's just always been my mindset. And so I joke about not having a dad all the time growing up and things like that. But like as a teenager, man, that stuff, it really did get to me. Yeah. And I just remember a message about how no matter what you're going through, no matter where you've been, like God wants you. There's nothing you can do to mess that up. And I just went down and I said, look, man, I don't think that I don't think that I've surrendered in the way that I need to. And so my youth pastor at that time sat down with me and he talked me through everything. We talked for probably 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And then, my wife, girlfriend at the time, obviously, came shortly after me. And so, we get to talking a few weeks after that. And, she had went to that church camp with us as well. And so she gets to talking and, man, one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced. And again, I didn't know that she was going to be my wife, you know, in this moment. But
Sure.
my wife and I were baptized together, you know,
Well, that's cool,
at,
man.
Really?
at 15 years old. So
So you just happened to be scheduled on the same day.
we did.
Right?
We were scheduled on the same day.
How about
And
that?
so, because we came to faith at different times, but you know,
Yeah.
baptism, sometimes it might be a few months, but we came to faith at different times, but we were baptized on the exact same day in our
Oh,
home
that's
church,
cool.
which was
cool,
really,
man.
really neat because it ended up being the church we got married into, which was
Wow.
pretty cool.
I just think too, you know, just shout out to youth pastors and those that engage in the youth and do these events
For sure.
for after school events and all these things. And so many times, you know, having been in ministry for 27 years now,
Wow.
Yeah.
you think, is this really making an impact?
It
Am
makes-
I just
Yeah,
cooking burgers for no reason?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
it
you
makes
just,
such a profound impact. And
You've never
and
cooked me burgers.
the other thing I'll say too, man, my youth pastor was incredible. I love him. I keep up with him to this day. But man, we had so many elders in the church that, you know, a lot of them had kids in the youth group, so they were like super involved.
Sure.
But they loved on me too. You know what I mean? And they kind of knew where I came from and my upbringing. And so, man, I just remember. And it's a little convicting today. Like I remember at 15, 16 years old, just being on fire for the Lord, right?
yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I'm just like, man, if I could have a piece of that back, you know what I mean? Just to be on fire the way you were when you first became a believer.
Right,
You
sure.
guys remember it, you know? And so I just remember that. And I just remember the people loving on me, man. And I finally felt like I had a family and things like that. And then,
well, that explains why you're so passionate about youth ministry.
for sure.
I want to get plugged in, so that's cool.
Absolutely. And so, which leads into, you know, I had accepted Christ at this point and I'd finally found my family, and that just led to so much more. Our pastor had moved on and we had a new pastor coming in right as I was graduating high school, and they started and their family, and man, that they took me in. They are absolutely incredible people.
The new pastor?
The new pastor.
Okay.
From like the second week I met them, you know, they kind of wrapped their arms around me and brought me into their house. They've made the joke several times, like, if you weren't 18 when we met you, we probably would have just adopted you, you know?
Yeah.
And then through them, the pastor's wife's brother is local here in Memphis. She got me connected with him, you know, after I'd known them for a little bit. And man, that family has taken care of us. I don't want to get emotional talking about it because I can see where this is headed. But man, I love them so much, and just the love and the care that they've showed me and my family. And man, the Jesse guy that I was talking about, that he was that first father figure, right? You know, Brian and Mike kind of stepped into those roles and have been since the day I met them. You know, they've taught me what it's like to lead a family. They've taught me, you know, how to lead your household. They've taught me how to parent. You know, they've just you know, they've loved on us, man. And it's just
So that's awesome, dude. I don't want you to start crying.
yeah, Nate, thank
But
you.
let's take a step
That
back.
was so
though.
loving, Tommy. Wow.
Just helping a brother out. So let's take a step back. So this time you're 18. You're saved now.
Are your siblings coming with you?
No, not really. So at this point, man, that is a regret of mine. I should have had my siblings in church with me.
Yeah.
I was so just ingrained in all the things that were going on there. Like that was my family, you know, and I'd almost kind of
And I could imagine that you were kind of like, man, I don't want to do anything to mess this up.
That's where my
was
mind went.
very, very much so.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know, if my sister comes in here acting crazy, right? I don't want them to think differently of me, you know, and things like that. So,
What was the relationship with your mom like now at this time?
you know, in high school, it had gotten better, right?
Has your mom stopped using pretty much? Or
She did. She would still drink and things. But like our relationship was good. She was just working all the time. Like she just wasn't around. But I remember like she would come to all my football games. She was very supportive from that aspect. And my relationship with my mom was probably the best during like early high school years and things like that. And so yeah, it was much better during those years. And it's just again. This other family that kind of came in and took me in, like they loved on my mom too, right? Like Melinda was there to you know, advise and mentor my mother and kind of help
So
her walk
what I
through
was
some
kinda
things for
trying
sure.
to get to. Like, so your mom was interacting with them as well. So
She was. They weren't necessarily coming to church,
Sure.
but they certainly knew them. And my mom's always been very appreciative of that family for kind of taking me in and things like that. So, and we spend holidays with them, every year, and so that's been really, really sweet. Just
I can imagine as well. Just your grandmother, going back to your grandmother that passed, and just the burden that she had for your dad.
yeah.
And for you guys, and then to kind of, I would imagine seeing you with like this skater whole mentality, and like, oh no, he's going to go down the same road and same path, and just all the different things that are your way. And then I can just see her smiling so big
sure.
from heaven, just like, man,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And
praise the Lord.
it was great. And then they kind of showed up around the time of me going into college. And so they kind of helped me support me through college. I was still traveling home whenever I could to go to church. And, Tiffany and I were still dating at this point. We went to 2 different universities. So that was kind of a struggle in a relationship, just being distant.
I would say, just hearing what we've heard so far, the fact that you go to college is a miracle in and of itself. I mean, scholarship, or did you pay for it yourself?
I got lucky, man. I was chasing Tiffany, right? And so she she did a year at community college and was doing like a choir because she's very talented musically. And so I'm not in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but this community college needed singers. And so they gave me a little scholarship to come sing. And I came and sang with her in a choir. And
Shut your mouth.
Are you kidding me right now? I'm like sitting here
Jazz.
like, are you?
Jazz choir.
Are you like really singing, or are you just like moving your mouth into my?
I had a
Probably had to do a tryout.
I had an air guitar solo and Don't Stop Believing. Yeah, so we'll have to pull those pictures out at another time. But so
I want to know why you're not singing in the worship band.
you don't want me up there, Tommy. I promise you that.
It's probably true.
Yeah, if you guys got an air guitar solo, let me know.
He said an air guitar solo. He didn't say vocals or anything. He
Well, you
said
got
air
a
guitar.
scholarship
I do
to
recall.
sing in college.
I do recall my audition being completely a cappella, and I went in and I sang Hallelujah, and I walk out because Dr. Feather was like, okay, we're going to discuss real quick. And I walked out and she 100% was like, hey, I think he's tone deaf. And
You heard her
Give
say
that guy an air
no,
guitar part.
I didn't hear her say it, but just knowing the lady, that's 100% what she said. And then the other guy who led up the department, and he was kind of the one who led the choir.
We need warm heart. He has a heartbeat.
And he was like, his girlfriend's in here. She's very talented. We need her to stay. And we need bodies. So
This is like a package deal.
Can he grapevine? Can he do some snaps? And so they gave me a scholarship, and I went to Dyersburg State
So
Community
2 things.
College.
One,
Yeah.
Tiffany owes you a thank you. 'Cause she got in because of you. And then 2, this goes out to
true.
all the, in plays when somebody's that little lonely tree in the corner. Like that's
Somebody has to.
somebody
Somebody's
got to be the tree.
Somebody has to do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
dude, we're going to do a karaoke very soon.
Oh, that's great.
I want to hear Michael sing.
So anyway, and then there you go to 4-year college.
Yeah, and so she goes to Union University. I wasn't getting in there. I would have loved to have gone there, but I wasn't getting in with grades, nor could I afford it. And so
Singing didn't improve?
it didn't.
No,
and
okay.
and so I thought I was a good enough football player
You tried to walk on
to
a D1
walk on
school?
to a D1 school. Yeah, that wasn't going to work out for me. So they said, well, how about equipment staff? And so I got a full ride scholarship. I worked for Memphis Equipment during the best 4-year stretch of
Yeah, school,
football
man.
history. And so
So that's an important note you just glazed over. So if someone's listening who has a kid who you want them to go to college and they're not athletic, there's still ways.
come on, Tommy, I'm not athletic. I mean, I just wasn't as athletic. No, that's absolutely correct. You can still be very involved and get your school paid for
Well,
and
I mean,
have
I
an
was like
incredible
D2.
experience.
Somebody needs to carry the water bottles.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, those are the trainers. It's,
okay.
Well,
Don't
let's not
confuse
go
them,
down
man.
that rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
don't confuse them.
Somebody needs to wash.
That's like a D. That's like a D2
Someone
position.
needs to wash the cups.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I started off. They paid for all of my school, and I got to travel around with the team, and I took an interest in coaching. And
That's cool,
I worked with some of the best coaches in the country who are all, head coach of Oregon now and Arizona State and Florida State. It's incredible what I got
That's
to
amazing.
do. But that was just a very short part. Like college was just kind of, I was in and out of church, right? Like I was working 80 plus hours a week and I was out of town with the team. And so I would church hop whenever I could. And then I would go back to my home church, which Tiffany was still on the worship team. And, my family that had kind of taken me and we're still there. And so I was going back to see them whenever I could. And then, my wife and I got married, in 2018, and so we were still for a few years. We would travel back and forth and go to our home church, and then 2017 I get a phone call. So this was been right before I got married. Sorry, I skipped over this part, but 2017 I get a phone call that we are playing in the Boca Raton Bowl while I'm at Memphis, and so. My dad, who I had not heard from at this point in over 8-9 years.
Wait. This is so your dad from the very beginning.
From the very beginning,
your
yep.
sister. You had heard from some. You said 8 or 9 years, but occasionally throughout your time, you'd been.
There was probably 3 times where like he would reach out just to see how everybody was doing, or. There was one time where he called me to tell me that I was not his kid.
Wait.
Yeah. And then I just kind of hung up on him. Yeah.
Time out. This is 2017?
Yes.
This phone call?
Yes.
So you get a phone call.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue while you're doing something in school.
Yep.
And your dad calls you and says what?
He says, hey.
Let's just actually recreate the phone call. Hello.
Are you my dad or are you me?
I'm you.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
That's weird, Tommy. Because now
makes everything weird.
Yeah, because you're my dad.
Now I'm getting confused on how the conversation even went.
All right, forget that.
No,
just tell me like how
some way he had found me on Facebook and found out that I was working with the University of Memphis, and he was in Fort Lauderdale, and we were playing in the Boca Raton Bowl. And the details of how he found out, to be honest, are very vague. I don't remember, but he found out that I was going to be down there. He was at this like halfway house, right, for addicts, and so he called and he said, "Are you going to be down here? I'd love to see you." And I said, yeah. I was like, sure. And man, I'm nervous at this point, right? I was like, I haven't talked or seen to this guy in several years. The last conversation I had with him, he was like calling in a very drunken state saying like, you're not my kid, and all this and that. And I just kind of hung up on him. I was at Six Flags with my friends, right? I wasn't dealing with this. And so.
Did you tell your mom about these encounters?
I did.
And what did she say?
She just brushed over and
okay.
You know how he is. He's drunk. He's crazy, X, Y, and Z. And so we're anyway, we set up a time to meet. And so we had practice that I had to be at. And Coach Norvell was very kind enough to excuse me from bowl practice. And I took a very expensive Uber from Boca Raton, Florida, to Fort Lauderdale that one of the coaches paid for me because he knew kind of what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I went to meet
and they make a lot more money than you.
So much more. And so I go to meet my dad at this, and we were kind of messaging on like Facebook Messenger at this point. He had gotten somebody's phone, and I was messaging this person. Yeah. It wasn't even my dad. And we had a time that we were going to meet at this Publix. So at the halfway house, this bus would take them to the grocery store like once a week. And so I take this Uber. I get there, and I wait for hours. He never shows up.
What?
Yeah. And never shows up. And, after that, I'd never heard from him again. In 2020, I got a call from my mom. Some doctor had gotten her contact information that he had overdosed on a park bench in Fort Lauderdale down there. Mm-hmm. And so mourned that, right? It was... I'd given up hope at this point that he was ever going to come back into my life, but it was still somewhat of I hope he can get it figured out. Because at this point, I know the Lord, right?
Sure.
And I pray for him, right? I hope he gets it figured out. There's still a lot of bitterness and a resentment towards him to where I wanted good things for him, but I didn't want to reach out.
It's still got to be tough to hear that your father dies.
For sure. Oh, absolutely, man. If you would have told me, like, hey, how do you think you would react if I told you your dad died? I'd probably be like, dude, I haven't seen that dude in years. I don't care. I had like this very tough exterior when it came to my dad. Like, I just didn't care. Again, I make jokes about it all the time.
Well, my wife was the exact same way.
Yeah.
Same way.
When my mom told me, man, I broke down. Mm-hmm. And it was just so much emotion. And a lot of that emotion, it wasn't from like, memories that I had with him, right? Because
Yeah.
all those were terrible, you know, and it wasn't from anything like that. It was my sister has given him more grace than he could ever deserve. She's seen a lot. She went through all the stuff with me. For some reason, she saw the good in him and just always did. And so I knew it was going to crush her. And she had been through so much too. She had recently had a boyfriend who she had a kid with who she had found overdosed. So it was very poor timing. She had a dad and a boyfriend overdose within the same year. So that was a very tough thing for her. But yeah, man, I mourn this guy. It was really tough for me, but I was kind of able after the fact to kind of move forward, right? And just, okay, my dad's gone, right? Still got my mom. I've got this family who's been incredible and taking care of me and my siblings. And then, man, life's good. I'm pursuing the Lord. Things are going great. And then just a few years ago, was going through, some health issues, nothing serious, but a doctor was asking me like, does your dad have a history? Do your mom or dad have history of whatever? I said, well, here's what my mom has a history of. My dad really couldn't tell you much because basically gave them the Spark Notes version of everything we talked about. And he said, well, I would suggest maybe doing like one of those 23andMe and just see if like your genetics are, acceptable to whatever, these different diseases are and things like that. And so I do this 23andMe and I get all my results back and I'm like, all right, I'm high risk for skin cancer and like one other thing. It's like some vision thing. It's like, okay, for the most part, I'm good, right? Close the app, don't really think anything of it. And I'm driving home from work one day and I get a message from this lady who I thought was insanely crazy. And she was like, hey, this is so-and-so. I hate that you had to find out like this. If you have any questions, please let me know. And granted, I'm 30 years old. This was just a few years ago. And I said, that's weird. So I call my sisters and I call my mom.
Questions about what? Yeah.
She just left it very vague. She was like, if you have any questions, let me know. And I was like, that's weird. So I call my mom, I call my sister, and they were like, we've never heard of that lady in our lives. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And so I just ignore it for like 2 or 3 days. And then I open up the phone and I go to the app and I'm just like looking around on the app. And then there's a family tree that it had connected me to her. And she was my aunt on this family tree. And I said, how is this lady my aunt? Nobody's ever even heard of her. And so I messaged her back and I said, hey, sorry, I think you got the wrong guy. Something happened or whatever the case may be. And then she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You don't know. And so then she goes on to tell me.
You don't know what?
She goes on to tell me that my dad, the guy who, I just recently mourned, I guess at this point, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he was not my dad. So my real dad had been living less than an hour from me my entire life. And most of my family, if they didn't claim to know for sure, they claimed to at least know like that there was a chance. Yeah.
What was that word you used earlier?
Bananas.
Yeah. And so
Wait. Time out. We got to sit here for a second.
Well.
This could be a movie.
imagine how I felt.
Yeah. Forget how we feel, and we weren't even involved. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
So
good way
you
to
go to
bring
your
it back.
mom and you're like, Mom, you knew this?
So
Well, you're asking, is it true? I don't know. I mean,
yeah. So the lady, I get connected with her and she messages me and she's like, your dad's name is this. This is everything you need. I mean, she laid it out for me. She was like, she told me everything. And before I said anything to her, I immediately look this guy up and I see that he is mutual friends on Facebook with my mom and both of my sisters. And I said, that's weird. Or excuse me, one of my sisters, not both. And so I call the sister immediately that he was mutual friends with. And I said, who is this person? And she gets real quiet. And she was like, why are you asking me this? And I said, do you work with him? Do you? No. She was like, yeah, I work with him. And I then tell her about the messages that I just received, and she gets really quiet again, and she starts crying and says, I'm so sorry. I thought it wasn't my place to tell you X, Y, and Z. And so I freak out at this moment. I call
How
my
did your
other
younger
sister
know?
So apparently my cousins knew, and my aunt and uncle knew, and they had been telling my entire family, like my entire life, like, hey, you guys know that, he's not his dad and all this other kind of stuff. And everyone was just either too scared to tell me.
So why
or
was your
didn't.
sister showing grace?
I don't know, but
Wait.
The guy that
Sorry.
you thought was your dad.
Well, was the sister the dad? I mean, the daughter of this guy who's an hour away, or is she the legit daughter?
she's legit. Yeah.
She's the legit daughter from the guy who passed.
So I then find out
That's your
that my
half-sister.
grandmother, who played a pivotal role in my life, was not my grandmother, and that my sister, who I was full brother and sister with, was not my full
half-sister.
sister. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So did the guy know the
So that's kind of where it went next, right? So I
Okay.
start making a lot of phone calls really quickly to try to figure out what's going on. I'm kind of freaking out at this point. I'm driving home
Well,
from
I
work.
remember when this was happening.
Right.
This was like you said
Yeah,
a few
just a-
years ago.
just a few years
I
ago.
definitely remember it was happening, but
And so I'm making
know
a
a lot
lot
of
of phone
details.
calls, and somehow I think my sister probably got word to my mom. My mom went rogue for 2 or 3 days. Nobody could get, and she wouldn't talk to anybody, just kind of locked herself in the house and wouldn't talk to anybody. And so talked to my aunts, talked to my cousins, talked to my sisters, and they're all just like, yeah, man, wasn't our place to tell you. We didn't know for sure, so we didn't want to tell you. And then so I reach out to the guy on Facebook, and he claimed to be just as shocked as everyone else, right, at first. And I was just like, man, this is crazy. How do you not know, right? And then I start talking to my sister, who works with the guy, and she's like, he's been making jokes for the past 3 or 4 years that he's my dad, and he picks fun and stuff and says that he's all of our real dads.
Wait. Your sister is working with him?
Yeah, they
Just
worked at the same place.
By happenstance.
Just small
Before-
town stuff, Tommy.
Oh,
Small town stuff, man. And so
that is bananas.
So they're working together, and I said, someone doesn't make jokes like that unless they knew something. You know,
have knowledge.
Yeah.
or
how
something, yeah.
ironic.
I used
right?
to make jokes all the time, but like, hey, how many kids you got? I mean, hey, this is my the only one I know about, that kind of
Right.
thing. Like, but
Yeah.
this guy was being serious.
Wow.
Yeah,
Or-
and so, I started having conversations with him, and come to find out, he kind of slipped up in one conversation and admitted that he knew at least that there was a chance, right? And so, and then my mom to this day still denies that she had any clue. Granted, you gotta have a clue, right? You're 18 years old. There were
Yeah.
2 guys. They're
Right.
the math tells us you had to know there was at least a
50-50.
chance,
Yeah.
right?
This is like, so I said earlier, this is like a movie. I actually made a movie about this called The Truman Show.
Yeah. And
It's like
so,
you're the only one out of the loop.
do you guys remember the very beginning of the first episode, whenever I said I was born in Twin Falls and the jury's still out on
Yeah.
why we were up there?
Yeah.
I thought it was to visit my grandmother for most of my life, but a lot of people have now told me that we were up there because my mom and the guy I thought was my dad were trying to run away from those rumors and trying to get away from it. And that's why we were up there. So, so yeah, that was really tough, man. That was a really tough thing to go through, especially given all the other things that I went through, as far as, not having an earthly father and things like that. But my approach to it this time, having a heavenly father, made that so much easier of a situation, as easy as it could be, right?
Yeah.
It's still hard. But if you would have told me that when I was a non-believer, man, I don't know how I would have reacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
When I've told you this too, man, knowing a little bit about your story, not all of the details that you shared, right? I mean, my mind's even more a little blown on how much life you lived in a short amount of time. But I think this is why seeing you be a husband and a dad and how serious you take it and how much you love on your son, excited about, your girl coming, all that stuff. Man, like it makes sense because this is where you can look. And I think one night you and I actually prayed, even one night after guys group, because with some of the health stuff that was going on, and your son and things going on there, and it was like, man, like this is where you, better than most people as a believer, can look at it and go, man, you have a heavenly Father that is good. His character never changes. He's not running away from you. There's no conditional love there. It's like, man, that in my mind with your story and how God has used it, like gives you a chance to just see that there's unconditional love.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where I was headed with that. Like this time was so much easier because I had a father who wasn't going to run, right? That did not care about all the things that transpired, beforehand, or all the things that I went through. He was there to walk me through that moment. And he was, he shows every day and showed love then, that just made it so much easier for me to be able to accept the things that kind of were going on. And I play it off, right? Like I don't care a lot of times. It's not that I don't care. It's just that God has provided in so many other ways to where it's, my energy and my focus doesn't have to be there, right? It can
It's
be
not your identity either.
For sure. It's not my identity. It's the fact that this guy walked in 30 years later and is now my dad, right? That doesn't change anything with, the family that I have, the family that, I've told you guys about that have, taken me in and been in those, parental roles and mentorships and things like that.
Yeah.
Like that's where I find comfort. That's the things that God's provided for me. And, yeah, man, he's just been really sweet through it all.
This is where the perspective, when you hear a story like this, is so important. You look at the first half, and somebody that wants to shake their fist at the Lord can be like, how could a good God allow that to happen? If you just take the first half.
Yeah.
If you also look at the whole story and consider the second half, right? You're a believer. You see this through the lens of like, man, God is a good Father. He loves you. He cares for you. There's nothing that's going to change your mind on that. Oh, and by the way, he's given you an earthly family, right? That have taken you in, like loved you like their own, right? Poured into you, given you examples of what it looks like to love their family, raise their kids. So it's like, man, you've lived a lot of life in a short amount of time, but you've also seen the goodness of the Lord in so many things, with not just salvation that he offers you, and anyone for that matter, but also this family that's, loved on you.
For
and
sure.
Still very much involved in your life, and I know how much you feel about them. Yeah, it's a sweet picture. So if you just look at the first half, that's where you just go, man, don't let it...
Story's not over.
Story's not over.
Yeah, I think too, Michael, listening back, man, it's so fun to look back at our stories and look at the ways that God draws us to himself, right? Here's a woman that wasn't even your real grandmother, was praying over you, That's your first introduction to a relationship with the Lord you saw in somebody.
Right.
And then going to this church, and then the church hurt. Going to another church hurt. And so but then finding a youth pastor who extended, who spent time with you, who invested. Finding a girlfriend that would follow in the same path of trusting the Lord. So y'all got to experience that together, and then ultimately get married. And just watching all these little things that the Lord has done is just so sweet. When you look back at it and you're like, man, he didn't have to do any of that.
For sure.
But that's how much he loves us, is that even in the brokenness, as Tommy mentioned, like even in the crazy, you're being exposed, seeds are being planted, you're hearing truth, you're seeing something different. It's all broken and a mess.
Right.
But man,
Yeah,
how
man.
cool.
God's been so good through it all. He really has. Yeah. And one thing that I get a lot when telling people my story is like, man, you've done so well for yourself. How did you get yourself out of that mess? I didn't. I didn't. I owe everything to, my Lord and Savior. Like he was with me the entire time. Yeah. When I strayed away, he was with me. When I was on fire, he was with me. Right. He never strayed away, and he provided in ways that I never could have imagined.
And the central theme in all of this is it's really, even though we're an active participant, it's really God's story.
For sure.
And his testimony of what he can accomplish for others to see that. I think it's incredible. And I think what's important, you said something earlier. You said you were on fire for the Lord. You wish you had some of that back now. I think I've been there for sure. As we remember how our story is with him involved, that just taking a step back and looking at that from an outside perspective can really reignite that fire. So not only does our story, really it's his story, help others see his goodness, it also reminds us of his goodness.
Right.
Yeah. I remember, and it's kind of as we're closing out and kind of thinking about this, I remember reading something, and there was this example of, it was either something I read or a pastor mentioned it, but it's like our lives are like those handmade rugs that people make like overseas and stuff, right? Like on one side where they're threading
Tapestry.
the needle. Yeah, that and whatever the official word is, but like on one side of it, you can't make sense of any of it, right? When they're hand making these things. But when you look on the other side and you flip it around, it's like, man, there's this beautiful work of art that becomes this rug that people would pay hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars for. And to Jeff's point and Tommy's point, it's like, man, like we can't always see the thread that's being woven in the story that God's, doing in the lives of people and bringing in other people into people's lives and using that.
And intersecting those at specific times. And the things that happened back in Idaho set up this encounter with this youth pastor. All of these things aren't by chance.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that, the theme of a lot of hurt that I went through, right, was my dad, right? And, had a couple stepdads in the middle of that throughout the childhood. And then, of course, the situation just a few years ago, with my dad not being who I thought it was. How ironic is it, that the thing that I needed the most was an eternal father. It wasn't an earthly father, and even though he provided in that way too, right? There's two very, very things that I remember very distinctly that I value so much. But the pastor that took me in, I remember he told me just a few years ago. His name's Brian. He said, I don't know why God brought us to Halls, Tennessee. Like he called him there. He said, but if us meeting you was the only reason, it was worth it. And man, that meant more to me than he'll ever know.
Yeah.
And then of course his wife's brother, who's been the other father figure in my life. I'll never forget, man. I was at a funeral for a friend of mine, and the guy turned around and said, "Which one of you is Mike's boy?" And this guy's not my dad, right? He's not my earthly father, but he had told someone like, "Hey, that's my boy." And like God provided earthly father figures for me like that I never could have imagined, but it's my eternal father that set the tone for all of it. And it's just a beautiful thing, man. It really is.
Well, Michael, I want to encourage you with this and listeners, man, if you have a similar story where church hurt is there and, man, just brokenness in the home and that kind of thing. One passage in particular that's been brought to mind is 2 Corinthians 1:3-4. It says, God comforts believers in affliction so they can, in turn, comfort those in any trouble with the same comfort they received. And I want you to think about what people provided for you and how you can, in turn, provide that for others that are walking through that same thing. So whether that's with youth here, or I don't even want to challenge you, man, just think about your own family,
Right.
siblings, your dad, like, man, all these complicated relationships and things that you have. But, man, what an opportunity to say, hey, listen, I know it hasn't been what it's supposed to be. It wasn't for me either, but this is what God did for me, And so I just encourage you, man, with the same love and grace and acceptance you've received from the Lord, man, share that with them. And, man, guys, thank you for listening. Michael, thanks for being with us, man. I pray that you guys are encouraged to, number one, don't count God out because of past experience. Find a church that loves the Lord and that will walk alongside with you in that. And, man, I just pray that you guys are comforted and encouraged by this story. And Michael, thank you for sharing with us, man, and keep sharing it, man. It's powerful.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Man, thank you for listening.